of that comfort that maybe you didn't have with anyone else. So it can feel like that, but yeah, that's the thing. Friends, you can have that friendship, with not just one person, but like as you journey through your life, you will have more friends and everything. Like having this role, a person in your life called your therapist. So leave that role to just that, because you can have friends outside this role which can't be replaced by those friends that you have. If I'm making any sense.
Yes, makes sense. It just really comes back to, your therapist is just your therapist. The minute something else starts happening, you want to be friends with them and things like that, right? It's important to bring it up with them, because if it goes into some other kind of relationship, then this person is just not your therapist anymore. It's the whole multiple relationship thing.
And then this also ties in with our own ethics and what it means to be a good counselor, which is that you have to look out for that particular dependency that starts to happen, and if you realize it's happening, we actually as counselors then have to actually either try to stop it, to actually firm up the boundary there, or we would actually have to then terminate and move them on to another counselor. And this is more for the benefit of the client, because then dependency would feed into it and it would essentially undo all the work that you've done. So
because ultimately the goal is your well-being, the client's well-being. And if the therapeutic relationship itself, there are this multiple roles happening, complicated emotions involved, and there is no longer objectivity, or if there's biasness going on, that is no longer therapeutic relationship. That is something else that's happening. So because the essence of therapy is this therapeutic relationship that adds value to your healing journey, when that is no longer taking place, so that termination will eventually happen. And it's bound to happen somewhere, at some point, but in this context. But speaking of that, it can feel confusing when but my therapist is friendly, so you can have a good rapport with your therapist. In fact, that is needed to have that comfort for you to open up and everything, right? While you can have a good rapport and that friendliness, it is not friendship or anything more or anything less.
And the boundaries are very important, especially I feel like in this context, right? Something I think about a lot, education, because eventually the students graduate. And so if you become so dependent on your therapist, and then one day you graduate and you don't have access to this service anymore, it could just be doing more damage than compared to when you came to see me. And of course, any one of us could come out of this profession, come out of this job in any way. So it's important that that boundary is always there for the benefit of the client, like you said.
Ultimately it is that. So along the way that if there is I'm being rejected here or anything, it's not that. It is very focused on what is benefiting you, and if there is that sense okay, this is not benefiting clients anymore, so that is no point in moving further and but of course, just the reality of things, to understand that client, and in this setting they will graduate, so it will stop somewhere.
So, and ethically also, one of the, I believe we have the principles, our counselling principles, one of it is to not do any harm. So them becoming dependent would be doing a lot of harm, so we always want to prevent that from happening and come back to that independence that we want them to have. So
sessions are usually about not confronting but uncovering, discovering, especially being aware and eventually coming face to face with whatever issues are bothering you. But if you're going to get defensive about it, and you have that sense of betrayal, then you already know that you're too close. The client's too close already. They've already stepped off that client counselor relationship, and they've moved you into another part, and that's when you also know that this is not going to be effective anymore. Literally forced to make a termination. So the boundary thing very important for us. That's why you'll find that most of your counselors are very aware of what's happening. We don't talk to you all outside of the session. And I think this is something that I don't know if you'll tell your clients, this was something that we practiced, which was that every time we start sessions, or we tell them okay, I see you within the session, but anytime I see you outside in a public space, I will not be the first person to acknowledge the relationship. If you wave at me, you smile at me, you acknowledge me, I will reciprocate.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be the first one, and it's not because I'm ignoring it, but professionally, this is your privacy.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm respecting the fact that you may not want people to know that you are seeing me as a counselor. And I think in a college, in an education setting, it's also a little bit
Yeah.
more difficult because you see us walking around and we're sometimes
Yeah.
part of like
A lot,
events.
yeah.
So then it's kind of like some people see you and they already know you because you're there at the events or you've mixed in with the students. But again, we still try to kind of maintain that because
As much as we
as
can,
much as we
yeah.
can, because you never know. And like even though others are like, oh, I know them because they had a booth down at Intima with or something.
Yeah.
Others may feel like, why is she waving at me? Like, I don't want to know, like, shouldn't be waving at me. You know? So it's important to them. So
Yeah.
keeping in mind that each individual's privacy, right? Yeah, that's I think one of the main boundaries as well for a counselor, whether in education or in private practice, is that we don't acknowledge the clients outside of the room.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, it is very client focused. Just the whole process, the whole journey. Even when it comes to opening up for clients, like for you to open up about your issues and everything, it's about you. It's about how much you open up, and of course, as you know, transparent as possible, as honest as possible. That is going to be key for your journey. It is meant for you. It is not meant to impress counselors or like, you know, I need to be my counselor's favorite client kind of thing, and like to like yeah, you know, that it does happen, like, you know, maybe there's a reason for that also, like, you know, maybe it's a way of feeling validated, like, oh,
People
my
pleaser.
my counselor acknowledges. And yes, we do, but that is not the intention. Like, it's not something that you have to constantly do.
Okay, so after all the discussions about what do you say normally the clients will get out of it, like what would be the outcomes?
So depending on the concerns, right? So let me think of like the most common one. So the most common one would be like in a social setting. So be it like making friends in like a social event, or like uni events and stuff like that, to like meet new people. If social anxiety is the concern, then over time what happens in throughout counseling is like we would set at the beginning we would set this goal to like work on developing social skills, and then the second part to tackling that concern would be managing your anxiety in those social events, in those settings that are anxiety inducing for you. So for example, like even if it's like presentations that can cause you anxiety, but like it gets to a point that you can't present at all, and then it costs you something, it costs you your marks, right, your grades. So the outcomes, I would say, once these goals are set and then as we work through it, you would develop those social skills that is necessary to build connections, make friendships, and aside from that is also managing this anxiety. Say if you know, at one point the anxiety was like too severe where like you would tend to, you know, call in sick and not just attend that class and not do your presentation at all. So from that it can get to a level where it is bearable and manageable, where like the anxiety is still there, you can still feel it, but you can also perform at the same time. So those are usually the outcomes for like specific concerns. But then like in counseling, that it's not always like just one concern. It can be like a lot of concerns, and like maybe you know, it can also be like processing certain unfinished business that has happened like in the past, recovering from like really past trauma and experiences, right? So there can be different outcomes from there as well. So I want to hear from you guys.
I think, you know, like with your example of like social anxiety or anxious situations, and then you learn the skills, and maybe that's something you worked on in the moment, but then over time you get to replicate these skills that you learned for different contexts. And maybe coming back to like the very basic definition of the study of psychology, which is like to understand why we think, feel and act the way we do. So maybe part of counseling also is that clients get to understand why certain things are happening, why they're behaving in certain ways, why they're thinking in certain ways. So for example, if like they're getting really affected by a comment that a friend made, they can understand better why it's really affecting them, why they're thinking certain things. And then it happens in different situations. Maybe their boss says something to them or their family says something to them, and they can use that same insight they gained to navigate how to go about those different situations. So maybe understanding themselves better, and then, you know, like what she said, to managing and regulating their emotions so that they can function as like members of society in like an effective way. So
I think that's really good point for on both ends. Yes, in terms of specific goals, yes, you get these specific outcomes. Sometimes I think it depends on how much, like where they set the benchmark for the goal. So that's you know, in terms of that, it's like our role to make sure at least it's realistic, right? It's like, please don't set it up there when you know like humanly possible is like only down here,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
it's like
That is
please,
very important what you mentioned.
yeah, like please don't set yourself up to fail, and then after that say I fail,
Yeah.
I'm a failure, which is actually
Yeah.
a cycle that does happen.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah,
be mindful.
It's like a self-sabotage
Correct, it's a
situation.
self-sabotaging
Yeah.
situation, which we also
Yeah.
come across quite often as well. The other thing was like the self-exploration part, getting more self-aware, knowing what's happening to you and why it happens. I think that's actually pretty major, because it does help in the sense that they now are then more aware of what triggers them, and then they can also then use the skills that they've learned to work on it, stave it off, or work through it. I've also found that sometimes when they reach a certain goal, they find that they have a different goal that they want to work towards
Yeah.
after that. So,
Yeah.
That's possible.
yeah. So another outcome is that you terminate for this issue, but then you get a continuing client for a different issue, which is perfectly fine and it's normal. So don't worry. It's not a one-time finish.
One-off.
Kind of, yeah, it's not a one-off. Like I've only come for this problem. I terminate. I cannot come back again. You can.
Yeah.
You can. You can
Most
come back
certainly
as
can.
many times as you like. All right. That's what we're here for. It's just that in terms of goals, it's always like one by one, because if you want to be an octopus and do 8 things at the same time, you're not going to give enough brain power and attention to like really work towards all 8 goals at the same time. Very much like in an academic setting, right, where you have like your final week and you have 8 assignments. But if you're going to sit down and write 3 assignments within the same hour, none of your assignments are going to get done, because while you're writing this one, you're thinking about assignment number 2. When you're doing assignment number 2, you're already thinking about assignment number 3. And it's just not going to work. So that's that singular focus where we pick one goal at a time. I think that's where that's also like contributing to like the positive outcomes in that sense.
Yeah.
But I would also think that I think maybe it's fair for clients to understand that sometimes you may not hit the goal. You may not hit maybe 100%. Maybe you get up to 20%. And that's fine. There could be any number of things, right? It could be environmental reasons. It could be personal reasons. Maybe you're not ready for the next step that will move you further towards the goal, which is fair. Especially when we're talking about personal issues like emotional hurts or old trauma and things like those things take time. I think in that sense, when we come to outcomes, it's just that they reach a point where they understand where it's coming from, and for me, I would consider that a good outcome.
Yeah.
Actually,
That's a good point. Yeah.
it's like our responsibility in this podcast is also to talk about how they can find maybe qualified counselors, because counselors in Malaysia, we're regulated in the sense that we have to get the license, but at the same time, I find that the word itself is not really protected in that sense. So you do find it like being bandied around a little bit, like moving here and there. Sometimes you don't really know if this is a licensed counselor. Maybe they were licensed in the past, has it lapsed or whatever.
Yeah.
One of the best ways, I think, for people to find out at least the most up to date is basically to check the Lembaga Counsellor Malaysia page and just search up the name of the counsellor that maybe they're thinking of seeing, just to see if it's listed there. You at least know at the bare minimum this person is an active licensee.
Yeah. And that's very important because, on the topic of goals, right? They can maybe in this setting they're working with us on a goal, and then you graduate, you have something else you want to work on, you find this other counselor.
Yeah.
So it will be in like a private center or something, and you're paying them, and it's important to know whether they are trained, they're licensed, they're qualified.
Yes, very, very
So this
important.
is helpful information. Yeah.
But coming back to what you said about when they continue outside, it's private centers, and we also touched upon how it can be a little bit prohibitive in terms of money. So I think for those who perhaps are looking for maybe something more affordable, there are certain sites that certain centers that provide sliding scales. So what sliding scale means is that they will charge you based on your ability to pay. So there is that. That's one. So it's not like when you check the pricing and like this is what they state and that's only that pricing. So they can be flexible. I'm not sure about which centers, but I know there are. I think the other option is also practicum students. So the counseling students, the trainees, the interns, they generally seem to have like lower fees, because they are interns. So for those who perhaps are feeling maybe a bit less critical, they can go for that lah. So not to worry, because interns are also trained to recognize when they're out of their depth, and then you do get referred to like a better trained professional.
Yeah, and they are supervised very closely
Yeah,
on
very
each
closely.
case. Yeah, and it's
You're probably wondering, like, hang on, don't we already have free service here? Why are you suggesting all of this? That's the reason, because finding the right fit of counselor is also important. So that's where, as of now, we are all females. So say like this is for our men out there. Say if you are more comfortable with someone of the same gender. So this is this other alternatives.
There will be people who don't feel right in the presence of a certain counselor. That's fine. I've had clients who have seen maybe 2 or 3 counselors before they actually settle down with a counselor, and so that's also something that that's very normal in the counseling profession, where we sometimes see clients once and then they don't come back again, they find someone else. So there is that as well. So when you come in and you feel like maybe not really, I don't want to see you anymore, you don't have to like ghost and shy and then like I forever cannot go into SSD and see them. It's okay, we understand.
That vibe is important, because like I think what we talked about earlier, right, we're not mind readers, so it is how much you choose to share with us, and if you're not comfortable with us, you naturally wouldn't want to share with us, and then it ties back to everything, how then we can't focus on your best interest anymore because we can't help you effectively. So
there are times that you probably come off worse than before because it's not working, and then you lose faith in counseling. It's like, oh, this is rubbish, or you feel like nothing's gonna help me. So I think that's really important. That right fit is pretty major.
So we kind of covered quite a bit today on our role and the purpose of this episode, which was to understand specifically what counselors do and what counseling is about, and when to reach out for us, what to expect, and the little things like the boundaries and the ethics and all that, which just goes into the whole process. So we kind of covered all of that. Is there any final words from you guys? Any encouragement?
I would just say, like, even if you just feel a little bit out of sorts, if you're feeling even homesick, for those of you who are moving away from home, and you think like you want someone to talk to, but you don't want to talk to anybody you actually know, feel free to come in. It's fine. It's even if you feel some small thing and you think I would like to see someone, feel free. There is no what do we call it? There is no minimum distress. There is no minimum distress line before you come and see us. Just come if you feel you need it. But please don't hinder yourself from seeking help just because you think that it may be a minor problem. It will pass, or you should be working your way through it on your own.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And this is where what you mentioned about like seeking help is actually very important, and like not to dismiss something as like not important enough, or this is a small matter, others have it worse and mine is not as bad for me to see a counselor and things like that. So it's understandable to have those thoughts, but like we are here to reassure you that nothing is too small to talk about. You can actually come forward, and in fact it is a sign of strength, as opposed to the common view, which is like it's a weakness, like you don't want to talk about things like small things to people, like just keep it to yourself. No, actually let's just be more open to talk about it. It does help actually, just being able to voice out whatever that is bothering you. When it's like there are like certain symptoms that are showing, it is trying to communicate something to us, so try not to ignore it, and do reach out for help, and we are here for you.
I really like that there is strength in vulnerability. It's not weakness, and we're humans, we're allowed to show our emotions. And today it felt really good talking to you guys about this topic and like educating everyone out
I feel
there.
like both of you got rid of some things off your chest.
Yes, definitely.
It's quite therapeutic.
It
is. And we have another exciting one.
We
We did promise 4.
Yes.
So there will be 4. So next week will be the second one. If you did like this one, it would be encouraging for us if you could just give us a like, or just let us know what you thought. If you have any questions, please do feel free to write in on the Insta. Write in on our Instagram, and basically we will try to answer what we can in the, I think it's the fourth one, right?
Last one.
So the 4th one is all about you guys. It'll be more focused on questions that we get from all of you. So please, anything, like appropriately, okay? But yes, we'll do our best.
And share this with anyone who you think doesn't really understand counselling and maybe hesitant to reach out to us. This could be like beneficial for that too.
So thank you for sticking by us up until this point. So we are looking forward to talking to you guys again next week. So see you guys again for the next episode.
Alright, thank you. Bye.